Hello, Peace. What's up? Where is Charlie and where is Lisa?
Good evening. I don't know, but Charlie had reached out to me earlier. That was before this time to remind me of class.
What kind of new behavior is this one?
Yeah, Kuri. Maybe they'll join soon.
If you in the college is behaving anyhow, how do you expect the students to be? When we transfer these things to them, they see you are not serious. How would they be?
Sorry, Edie. Good evening, everyone. It's 5 already. Oh, um, please let's just give 5 minutes as usual. What we do, so to enable others join us before we start.
Alive.
Okay, good evening, everyone. We are all welcome to class. So I want to sincerely apologize for those of us that got the link for the class late. We had a slight issue, so that was why the link was dropped late. So because of that, I know that probably some have been waiting for it. Let's just add extra 2 minutes so that we'll start together with them. And to Mr. Busayo, I sincerely apologize for this, sir, for taking 2 minutes out of your time. It's not in our culture, you know that. So I sincerely apologize, sir. So please, let's add just 2 minutes for others to join so we don't start without them. It's from our end, please. Good evening once again to everyone. We're welcome to today's class. And again, I want to apologize for the delay in dropping the link for today's class. We had a slight technical issue and we sincerely apologize for that. But without any much ado, we're going to move straight to why we're here today. So I'm going to facilitator for today is nobody but Mr. Busayo. But before I introduce him, I would love to read a brief profile of his before I hand over the mic to him. So Mr. Busayo O Morakinyo is an innovative development, governance, and social accountability professional with ingrained experience spanning almost a decade working with various communities across Africa. He grew and scaled the largest social accountability movement in Africa, Follow the Money, from Nigeria and Gambia to Cameroon, Kenya, South Sudan, Zimbabwe, Liberia, Malawi, Cape Verde, and Ghana, establishing and maintaining effective relationships with partners across policymakers, community-based groups, government, media, and the civil society that advances the development and socioeconomic progress of these communities. He's a disruptive thinker and a strategic manager of people whose cutting-edge ideas on civic and GovTech is changing how social innovators view sustainability within the civic and government ecosystem. Along with being a two-time TEDx speaker, he has extensive practical experience in the areas of advocacy, campaigns, grassroots mobilization, and citizen engagement, capacity building, civic technology, and research. Please, with a warm round of applause. I know that he wouldn't be able to hear you, but I want to welcome Mr. Busayo. It's always nice having you, sir, and we have you today to learn from your wealth of knowledge. You're welcome, sir. You have the mic.
Please go.
We can't hear you, sir. We can see you, but we can't hear you.
Is it better now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. It's better, loud and clear.
All right, great. Thanks a great deal. Peace. Hi, guys. Thanks for always bringing me back. If I'm not mistaken, I think this is. I should have been on these sessions for almost 10 times already, if I'm not mistaken. It means that I'm doing something good, or I'm making some little sense, and so you guys have to get me to always come back. Thank you very much. I don't take it for granted. The provost is my personal friend and an esteemed elder brother, and I would always respond when he calls. I bet we've all been good. Just how many minutes do I have today? Just give me my time. You can send me a WhatsApp or you just drop it on the chat. Just tell me my time so that I can stop in a good time to take questions like I always do. Yeah. So let's start with an open mic session. Open mic, and please turn on your videos. I just want to see some faces. I can see Peace face. Thank you very much for doing that. So guys, as many of you can turn on your videos, please turn on your videos. I just want to see faces, and I just ask how has Nigeria been lately? If you can turn on your video, turn on your video. Let's just talk about Nigeria for a few seconds. How has Nigeria been lately? What's been our experience lately? Anyone can go first. Let's just run this for say 5 minutes. I take the first 5 people. Let's go. 1 minute each.
Okay, so if you want to speak, you can indicate by raising up your hand. So I ask you to unmute.
Okay, great. For orderliness, thank you, Peace. So if you want to speak, just 1 minute, 5 people. Let's speak about Nigeria. How's it been so far? Jimmy. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrongly. Go ahead. You're the first person.
Okay. Thank you. The name is Jimmy Sontio.
Oh,
Okay.
Jimmy. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's currently tough. Everywhere is tough. Calling for rethinking, and I think the topic for today also suits more, engaging more with both our leaders within ourselves as to how we want to, what kind of country we want to have next, and change this current experience across the nation.
Awesome, amazing. Ahmed, let's have you very quickly.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead, Ahmed.
Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity. I think what is going on in the country is a little bit awful. Everybody is in, what can I say, a state of rest. Everybody is hoping for the best. With a lot that is going on, we are hoping for the best. We are praying. As you know, we are prayerful people. And today's class, I know it's all about advocacy. Let's see how we can advocate more well in order.
Awesome.
Oh, thank you.
I like that you said we're a praying country. So let's keep praying. Musa, let's have you very quickly. Musa, let's have you. Musa, your hand is up. Whilst Musa is trying to come on, Sophia, yeah, Sophia, let's hear from you. Oh, Sophia disappeared. Oh yeah, go ahead, Sophia. Okay, yeah. Oh, I see you're making your hair. Oh, go ahead, please.
I think that the situation of the country right now is unbearable for many, considering that as at November, we had 46% of Nigerians living in abject poverty. And then since the year started, it has only gotten worse. So I'm concerned about the people who are not in Lagos, in Lekki, for example, people who live in areas where development is very little. And so I'm not happy. It also shows how low we've had a couple of quick fixes in the past few months, like clearing up the FX backlog, a few other tiny things that give us some temporary relief. But I can see that we've not had really good strategies to really boost the economy, especially across the secondary and tertiary sectors. So
yeah,
it's bothersome. And at this point, I think the cost of living is now too high.
Cost of living, Nigerian. Yeah. That's what I wanted to hear. Cost of living. Thanks a great deal. Thanks a great deal, Sophia. Maybe I just take one more person. What do you think could be the solution? Sophia spoke about quick fixes. Are the quick fixes working? What do we think? One person, just one person. What do you think is the solution? Where do we go from here? Just one person who is going to help us. Musa, your hand is still up. Are you going to help us tackle? Go ahead, Musa.
Yes, sir.
Musa, can you be a bit?
Thank you very much, sir, for giving me the opportunity.
All right, great. Go ahead. 1 minute. Your time starts now.
I think I keep on saying the only solution to Nigerians' problem is attitudinal change. As in, at individual level, let's change, and we should be patriotic to our nation, and also we should apply integrated approach and community-based approach, in the sense that all the stakeholders all hands will be in deck toward pursuing a particular goal, and we should be objective, not subjective, in all the things that we are going to do.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Musa. Attitudinal approach. I mean, patriotism. I think Nigerians are one of the most patriotic people we've had on the surface of the earth. Anybody disagrees with me? Nigerians are patriotic. Can I see your hand? You disagree? Nigerians are patriotic. Anybody disagrees that Nigerians are patriotic citizens? Anybody disagrees? Okay, nobody. Okay, Musa, you disagree Nigerians are patriotic. So hit me. How do you think Nigerians are not patriotic? Joseph, two people. Yeah, go ahead, Musa.
To some extent, if we consider some are patriotic, but the majority are unpatriotic, in the sense that because considering the rate of corruption, lack of national feeling or sense of belonging to Nigeria, and also there are a lot of things that if you are patriotic, you won't allow some certain things to happen, because it is the lack of patriotism that accumulates to give rise to some challenges that we are facing today.
Yeah, Musa, let me hold you there. Stay with me. So do you mean that one of the reasons why we are where we are today as a country is because citizens are not patriotic, or the people in government are not patriotic? Which let me get you better.
Both parties, sir, because the leaders
both parties, both citizens.
Because both the leaders have been elected from within us.
From within us. Okay, yeah, I like that. Okay, thank you, Joseph. Yeah, your shot. What do you think? Nigerians patriotic? Nigerians not patriotic? Joseph, over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, sir, for the opportunity. So, I don't think Nigerians are patriotic.
Awesome.
My reason is simple. Patriotism boils down to every single details. As regarding someone jealously safeguarding the name of his country, the integrity and whatever it is that the country represents. So, but at the lower level of it, even at the higher level of it, you get to see people being so much nonchalant and carefree about whatever it is that pertains us as a nation. Individuals just concentrate on themselves alone, trying to use whatever measure it is to enrich themselves, not caring who suffers it. So for me, that is not patriotism. And even at international level, I don't see us, jealously safeguarding and defending the affairs of Nigeria. Instead, people just wants to go whatever it is, the length that they can for themselves, and that's it.
All right. So you're talking about the citizens and those people in government, or just the citizens, or just the people in government, Joseph?
Both ways, sir.
Both ways. Okay, great.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, great. How many of us watched AFCON? I'm coming to you, Sophia. How many of us watched AFCON? You can put it on the chat. Okay, yeah, I can see some hands. You watched AFCON. How many of us? Sorry, can you show someone how to raise his or her hands? I think someone is in the chat box. Please, can you help me? Okay, this is getting more interesting. Sophia, Sophie, where did you go? Sophia, I was going to hear from you now, and you ran away. Okay, it's good. Because I'm getting more interest. Let me just give 30 seconds to the guys who wants to speak now. Kesiana, I hope I got that well. Yeah, you can go ahead. 30 seconds. Kesiana dropped. Peter, 30 seconds, please.
Okay, so quick one. For me, I think Nigerians are not patriotic when it comes to things that concerns finance about the nation.
Finance about the nation. Accountability.
This is why I believe Nigerians are let me say, majority of Nigerians are defeated. They don't believe the country has a future. Like, no matter how it goes, Nigeria will separate. So everybody is just there for his own interest, just like somebody said earlier on. Thank you.
All right, great. Anu Olakpo, let's have you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, go ahead, Anu Olakpo. Go ahead, please. Anu Olakpo, you're muted if you're saying something. Sophie, go ahead while Anu tries to sort out his connection issues, I guess. Sophia, go ahead, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I don't think that majority of Nigerians are patriotic. That's because when you talk about patriotism, you can't describe it without mentioning devotion. And we cannot separate ourselves from our leaders because we are the ones who become the leaders of the country. And we just repeat the same cycle. I think that Nigerians like to attach themselves to the name Nigeria when good things come out of Nigeria. But when it comes to the crux of it, I don't really see us being devoted to the cause of seeing Nigeria become what we dreamed it should be.
All right. I like the opinions I'm having. Whose hand do we have still up? Go ahead, 30 seconds. Anu Oluwakpo, can you speak now?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Can you hear me
now? Go ahead, 30 seconds.
Nigerians are not patriotic to the level that most of us will lack integrity. I think accountability, and majorly we are selfish. That's
selfish.
Yeah, we are selfish. We are not each brother's keepers because everybody is just doing their own things for their own self, and we don't abide by the rules and regulations.
Everyone is a hustler.
Yes,
awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that. Origenes, for pronouncing your name in that way, please. Can you go ahead? Your thoughts, 30 seconds. You're muted.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Thanks for the privilege to answer to this question.
Go ahead,
please, I want to just bring a kind of solution because that's the question you asked also.
All right.
Yes.
30 seconds.
For me, the first solution is to take action, a kind of positive action and proactive actions, not actions that will still continue to maintain us in the same status and the same situation we've been going through. Then I think, secondly, we need to get the people educated. Yes, I think that's what ECN is doing very well. And I want to really commend the vision of the Electoral College of Nigeria.
That's why
Then
we're all here.
lastly, I think what we need to do is to create a kind of system that will be stronger than individuals in power. What I mean by that means that we need to hold these people accountable. If you promise that you will do this and do that when you, in fact, when you are campaigning, then if you come on board, then you don't do it. Then even we need to create a kind of system, even if it's possible to send you to jail. Please, let's do it.
Awesome, great. I hear you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Justin, last but not the least, so that we can move on. Justin, over to you. Justin, can you hear us? Uyore Justin Agogo. Yeah, over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, sir. Good evening, class. I don't believe that Nigerians are unpatriotic. Patriotism has to do with a vigorous support, a commitment and love for your country. And if you watch whenever Nigeria is playing with any other team abroad, everybody across the divide, we are always all together cheering our men to victory.
One happy family.
Yes, that is patriotism. Now, what is currently happening in Nigeria is a crazy reaction to bad leadership that has been in existence for donkey years unending. In fact, the current situation is, for me, a mild reaction, because if it were to be like in other countries, by now the whole of the country will be on the street protesting. Yes, because I mean these guys are taking everybody for a fool. It's not that we are not patriotic. We've been very patient, we've been very calm, we've been very friendly. Every time they call elections, everybody goes out to go and vote. In fact, if you watch the 2023 election, a lot of people registered, a lot of people came out. That is patriotism. That is commitment. That's love for one's country. I don't think anybody in this country had at any point in time stood to sing the national anthem of Cameroon or Ghana. We always sing the national anthem of Nigeria, committing our loyalty and all to that. So
awesome. Thank you.
Nigerians are very patriotic.
Oh,
it's just
thank you.
Reaction to bad leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us hope. Finally, someone says Nigerians are patriotic. Okay, guys. I mean, for those of us who couldn't speak, you could just drop your thoughts on the chat box. We hope to come back to that. I think everyone is right. No one is wrong, depending on the perspective to which you look at this from. Right, and on the strength of this, we're going to dive into the class for today. Yeah. Okay, absolutely. Hopefully I'm going to move with so much speed. Please try to catch up or catch one thing. You may not be able to catch everything I say, because like I always say to the other classes before this, this subject is big, it's huge. We cannot exhaust it within the time allotted. And so in some sessions, we've gone above our time, but we want to keep to time this time. So just follow up. Even if it's one thing you can pick, my details are going to be probably on the screen or somewhere. You can reach out to me if you have any questions, and the Electoral College always knows how to get me. Right? So on the strength of this, we're talking about effective advocacy and policy influencing. One of the things that has characterized this new dispensation, some people want to call it a regime, right? Some people want to call it, another chapter in the democracy of Nigeria. I'm talking about the current government in power. One of the most synonymous conversations that I've seen people have is conversations around policies of government. So how many of us remember on the day of the handover, what the current president now said? He said subsidy is gone. I think subsidy is gone. I think those three words, has characterized the Nigerian economy from May last year, because someone made a policy or verbalized a policy, right? And it says subsidy is gone, right? Subsidy is gone. Naira had skyrocketed to as much as performing badly. I mean, the currencies, of countries that were looking up to us before, are way better than, that of the Naira. The Naira has sunk. Added to that policy was another interesting policy that has affected our economy, which is the regularization of foreign exchange in the country. And I mean, say whatever you want to say. These are policies. And if there is no lesson anyone have not fail should fail not to learn, is the fact that one single policy can determine the life of any single individual that is within the geographical entity of where power, can be able to drive new thoughts and new processes and new systems. So what I mean in essence is one government policy can shut down your entire life. One government policy can deplete your savings in your account. One government policy can make you bankrupt. And the reason why I'm using money is because Nigerians most times do not react until it affects their finances. That's the reason why I'm using economy. That's why I'm using money. There's been a whole lot of policies that has affected us gradually to the point where we are now that it may not sound interesting enough if I bring it. Okay, let me bring up one. The educational policy, the policy of education in Nigeria. It's almost non-existent. Public schools are in shambles. We're not talking about it, right? Because it really doesn't commercial. It doesn't compare to the amount you have in your pocket or your bank account. But the moment a government policy shuts down your bank account, for example, you feel it more, right? So whatever the economic quagmire we may find ourselves in, there are other little policies that we have neglected for a long time, and it has gotten us to this part. I hear some people talk about transparency. The government is not transparent enough, right? I mean, these are big issues, and unfortunately, Nigeria is plagued with hydra-headed issues. That no matter what you pick any sector in Nigeria today, you would see the multiplicity of the issues you find there. And that's why we have the Electoral College today, shining the light on some of these issues, just a few of these issues, so that those of you who are able to attend can be able to become the change in every sector you find yourself in. I think that's why effective advocacy and policy influencing comes in. So let's begin to tie this horse, around. Let's start from advocacy. What is advocacy? I mean, I have so many definitions of advocacy. I'm just going to read through some of them. Advocacy means challenging those in authority to make decisions and change policies, programs, and plans in such a way, that they are fair, equitable, and favor the disadvantaged and powerless, in the community. Advocacy is speaking up or drawing the attention of communities about an issue or a problem that affects the community, causing a public debate. Important, but what is most important is finding a solution that leads to change in the existing bad situation. Advocacy is also taking actions so that those in the positions of power or responsibility can change their negative attitude, and behavior about the poor and the disadvantaged people, and start treating them as human beings like any other person. Advocacy is also developing a proactive strategy or strategies and tactics aimed at building the power, clouds, energy of the community members so that they are able to claim their rights and entitlements, right? And any definition you want to use is very correct, but I would just stick to, I would let you, make up your mind on which any of the definitions you want to choose or you want to take. But what is most important for me is the question I'm about to ask. You can see it on your screen. When is the right time to advocate? When can you advocate? right? A good time to advocate is when there are problems that affect disadvantaged communities. It's a good time to advocate, right? And these problems, I don't want you to be narrow-minded in this session. Open up your mind as I speak. Think about various things, you know, that would probably affect disadvantaged communities, right? One of the pictures I saw on social media was the price of a drug called Augmentin. I don't know how many of us saw that picture. I think Augmentin used to be less than 1,000 naira or about 2,000 or so, and boom, I saw that it moved, you know, swiftly to about 22,000 naira and all. Now, what happens when the economy of a nation is like what we have in Nigeria is that there are some people, everybody suffers it, guys. Everybody suffers it, right? MTN, yesterday, we saw that MTN had lost so much money. In fact, MTN has depleted, you know, the shares of stakeholders. MTN, you know, probably lost about 130 million or billion dollars. Please don't quote me on that. I saw it on the news, right? And that means that businesses are losing money. And when businesses lose money, some of those businesses fold up and pack out. We've seen, I think there was, I think one of these multinationals, was it Unilever or something, you know, is planning to leave the country. GXO, I think, left the country a while back. And you see, these things affect everybody, but there are some people it affects the most, and these people are disadvantaged people. Sophia said something very important, not just about the people in Lekki, but the people who are in, you know, hard to reach communities, people who are marginalized, who were marginalized before the economy went into shambles, right? What is the fate of those people? Now, a good time to advocate, guys, is when there are problems that affect disadvantaged communities. I ask myself, those people who are on medical, who needs to take drugs, for example, every other day for them to stay alive, you know, may not be able to afford that drug. Before now, the example I used to give in our classes, the cohorts before your cohort, I used to say to them that every Nigerian is one sickness into poverty, no matter how much you have. And the example I used to give is, let's say you have 10 million naira savings. Note, the government has said less than 5% of Nigerians have 500,000 naira in their bank accounts as savings. Less than 5% of 220 million people have less than 500,000 and less in their savings. Now, as at 3 years ago, the value of 5,000 naira to the dollar would probably 500,000 would probably make a whole lot of sense. It was not up to as of 2017, or let's flip back to 2015 before the Buhari era. You know, it was, we got, I think the highest we got to was 200 or 250, and so 500,000 naira, for example, was going to be about $2,000 if I'm not mistaken, right? The value of your 500,000 naira now, it's the dollar hitting between, you know, 1.5, 1.7, you know, 1.8. My math is terrible. Someone help me do the numbers. What is 500,000 naira worth today in today's currency? Is someone helping me punch that number? 500,000 naira divided by, let's use 1.7, right? That's about $294. So what the CBN has said to us is that, you know, less than 5% of the population of Nigerians have $294 in their bank account, right? $294. The margin for you to calculate the poverty line globally is living below $1 per day, living below $1 per day. So as of 2014, $1 per day was about 200 naira per day, 200 to 250 naira per day. So what happens now is people who were living below that, you know, people who were living on $1 per day were on the poverty margin. Below that were below the poverty margin, right? Now, zoom from 2014 to 2024, guys. 10 years, I think so. 2014, 10 years, 10 solid years. Nigeria has consistently found that our economy has depleted, and $1 that used to be 200, 250 is about 1,500 to 1,800 naira today. I used to say to the guys before you, I said, if you have 10 million naira in your account and God forbids your family member, yourself, anyone, probably gets down with cancer or a liver problem, you are just few months away from poverty if you don't want that person to die. And it's not the assurance that the person is also going to survive when you spend all of those amounts. Now, so what you understand is that the realities, is so crazy that the best time for you to advocate is when you know that there are problems that would affect disadvantaged communities. As an advocate, your primary responsibility is to always speak out when you know that this policy of government is going to affect people, this action is going to affect people, this is going to affect people. The second time when to advocate is when there's a blockage in our programs. And what this simply means is the fact that we probably say today that I'm looking for an example, a contemporary example within the polity of Nigeria. We probably say that we want to give the poorest of the poor 5,000 naira, right? That is a good policy, guys. If a government, for example, comes on and says, that is cancelled, I know people will not complain because that process has been marred with corruption. But when there's a blockage in the program that benefits marginalized communities, it's a good time to advocate. Another good time to advocate is when you understand the root cause of a problem. Unfortunately, the problems we have within the Nigerian system is so hydra-headed that you may think your biggest problem is corruption, only for you to discover that there's something called ethnicity and tribalism lurking somewhere. You may think your biggest problem is ethnicity and tribalism, for you to also see that religion is coming from somewhere. Tomorrow, everybody says, religion is our single largest problem in the country. For you to just realize that the biggest problem is not religion, but wickedness, deliberate wickedness. You may think that the problem of Nigeria is wickedness, for you to just realize that, your father, your uncle, your brothers, your sisters, are probably the major cause of the Nigerian problem. And I say this with all sense of responsibility, because the people you call bad leaders today, are the fathers, brothers, sisters, siblings, aunties, uncles of some people, who may not see it the same way you see it. And so in Nigeria, when someone steals government money, people from the same ethnic group will say, leave him alone, he's our son. You are persecuting our people. You are shaming our people. When the other person steals, another set of people will say, no, that one is our brother. But the people who are fighting for these people may have not even benefited a dime from the stealings that have been going on. Now, so the problem of Nigeria, for example, is hydra-headed. And so all of us must be able to play a role in identifying what the root cause of these problems are, stay on your lane and tackle it from there. Another time to advocate is when there are policy implementation gaps. I use the example of, feeding 5,000 naira to the poorest of the poor. Let me use another example, the school feeding program. Fantastic program. Children that go to school should be able to have at least one meal a day. What happens is it's going to save the household economies, of the parents, that's one meal. So if the parent is able to provide 1 or 2 meals, the school is able to provide 1 meal. It balances the 3 square meal a child is supposed to have, for an improved mental growth, and physical growth. But when you discover that we had a minister in the Federal Republic of Nigeria who devoted her time to feeding school children when there was a COVID lockdown, you would understand that the moment you see a policy implementation gap, the moment you see a gap in a policy, you should begin to shout at the top of your voice as an advocate. Now, when I say shout, I don't mean you're just shouting into the air, because that's what most people do and they call themselves advocates today. We're going to address that problem. I hope we have some time to address that problem. So when there's a policy implementation gap, it's a good time for you to begin your advocacy. I mean, I remember this story, quite interesting contemporary story, because it affects all of us. Now, the conversation around the petroleum subsidy has been a conversation that started way before 2012. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan removed petroleum subsidy 1st January 2012. Everybody hit the streets. Even the government of today was on the street. Everybody was shouting. Goodluck wanted to kill us. Few years down the line, right? One of the major people who spoke against the petroleum subsidy removal, they are now in government. They have removed petroleum subsidy. What has changed, right? What has changed? Now, hate it or love it, and this is my opinion, quote me anywhere. Every country around the world provides some certain level of subsidy to its people. Note, every country, you can research this, do a desk research, do an in-depth research. Every country, everywhere in the world, provides a certain level of subsidy, right? Now, some people will say, are you subsidizing consumption? Are you subsidizing production? Call it anything you want to call it, but subsidy is not bad in itself. What is bad is in the implementation of the policy of subsidy. And so if a government comes and tells me that the reason why you're cutting out subsidy is because you cannot see subsidy benefiting the people, what the government should primarily fix is the policy implementation gaps in the policy and not to take away the policy. Let me run a parallel, guys, with you on part of this problem. Under the Obasanjo administration, there was what was called the highway tolls. If you were older then, I was not so much older then, but I knew this because I traveled a lot from when I was a baby. Across every major federal road in the country, there was what was called a toll gate. Now, the ideal purpose of the toll gate was so that when vehicles pass, the government takes a toll, and that toll should have been put into the repairing of the bad parts of the road. So what it means is, okay, those of you who are in Lagos or those of you who know the Lekki toll gate, the famous Lekki toll gate, the purpose why there was a toll on that road was so that the road would be able to maintain itself. So when the government collects 200, collects 100, collects 50, the purpose of that toll is supposed to be plunged into fixing the road. Instead of the government of Obasanjo to clean the corruption around, the toll gates, what happened? The toll gates were dismantled. The moment the toll gates were dismantled, government couldn't keep up with renovating or repairing the federal roads. So today we have more terrible federal roads in the country than we've almost ever had, right? Now, so another example, the local government was a cesspool of corruption. The same Obasanjo did his thing, almost reduced the powers at the local government levels, and put those powers in the hands of the state government, which were even worse than the local government. Today, so many years after, over 15 years after, we're still struggling to reactivate the local government, of which if the local governments were functional, the closest government to the people would have been the local government. So people should have held the local government more to account than the president. People should have held the local government more to account than the state government. So we created a barrier between citizens at the local government level because everybody comes from a local government or you live in a local government. 774 local government is not there for granted, right? So when there is a policy implementation gap, it's a good place to advocate. The reason is because sometimes government becomes arbitrary in their thinking and they take away a system that was designed to work and it's not working. Instead of them to fix the problem around the system, they scrap the system. The moment you scrap the system, you create a big problem. Part of the problem of political cohesion we're having today in Nigeria is the fact that the local government system is not working. But note, I said, that a good place to advocate is when you know the root cause of the problem. I know some of you on this call would probably, get into a debate with me and you will tell me that the local government or not the local government, that is not the root cause of the problem. Guys, like I said, whatever you think the root cause of problem is, tackle it from your part as an advocate. You also advocate when you want to demand for the rights of the people. I spent so much time, but it was important to spend some time here. Right. So let's look at what we call the targets of advocacy. Advocacy is not done in a bubble, guys. Advocacy is a scientific process. The reason I put science there is because, science has to do with processes. It has to do with precision. You know, advocacy is not your ability to shout the loudest. Advocacy is not your ability to speak the best kind of English or the best kind of grammar. No, advocacy is actually a scientific process. And in this scientific process, there's what we call targets of advocacy. A target is a person or individual in a position of authority at either the federal, state, local, or community level who can give you the decision you want. Now, if you know the right time to advocate, it's important for you to know who your target of advocacy should be. Sometimes in Nigeria, the kind of conversations we have is a little pedestrian. And I tell you what, sometimes, you know, Kule Lawal calls me and he's just like, what's even going on? And I say, boss, I don't understand what is going on myself, because the conversations people are having are not in tandem with the solutions or with the common sense around the advocacy. One of the reasons why this is happening is because people do not understand that advocacy has targets. Because there are various kinds of issues. There are issues that should be handled at the community level. For example, education, basic education should not be the business of the federal government. It should be the business of even the local government, not the state government, guys. Because in the local government administration system, there's what is called LGEA, the Local Government Education Authority. Unfortunately, the government of President Olusegun Obasanjo created the Universal Basic Education Council, which is a board, which is a commission now on its own, and that actually put, you know, subconsciously, you know, talking about the right policy in the right places. The Universal Basic Education, you know, was created, I think, in 2004, and it was created because the local government, you know, was in shambles. Instead of us to fix the local government, we created a federal institution and kept it in Abuja. And so the determination of what the children in Zango Kataf, you know, the children in far away Vandekia in Benue State, you know, is being decided in faraway Abuja, which is in the Federal Capital Territory. And so when the states even have universal basic education suburbs, you know, the suburbs in the states would not do anything except it takes permission or except it gets its funding from UBEC. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And you've left the local government education authority in shambles. The best set of people who should have addressed the problem of education, basic education, should have been the local government. Because it is in the local government that you have children. You hardly, unfortunately, even in the Federal Capital Territory, you know, you have children who do not go to school. Nigeria today has one of the highest population of out-of-school children. The last time UNICEF said it was almost 20 million. Right? Now, that's because, you know, advocacy was not done in the right way at that time. And I mean, Nigeria has made a whole lot of progress from 2004, guys. I mean, let's not make light of the progress we've made. But now, guys, we must understand that your advocacy must be targeted towards the people who have the authority, the people who are in the right position. So you ask yourself, where is my advocacy targeted to? What are the issues? What issues are under the exclusive list of the federal government? What issues are under the concurrent list? What issues, I mean, ideally, in a federal system where you have the executive, judiciary, the legislative arm, where you also have the states, federal, you know, and local government, all of this government should have, you know, and I think there should be a session in this one of these your classes or that would come that should address all of these. There are issues that are supposed to be federal government issues, national security, federal government, protecting the territorial integrity and lives and property of Nigerians, federal government. The state government should have its responsibilities. The local government should also have its responsibilities. Where there is no clear delineation of powers, you have Nigeria. Nigeria is what happens, guys, when you cannot understand. And so, you know, I talked about how hydra-headed the problems are. The problems are everywhere. Pick up any sector and you see the problems there. A primary target, guys, is the person or individual with the power and authority in the decision-making chain to give the ultimate decision. What this means is, if I have an advocacy, that is targeting the amount of out-of-school children, one of the first things I need to do is to look at the structure of education in the country, no matter how dysfunctional that structure is, and build my advocacy from the simplest of places. When you want to talk about school education, basic education, it's a little disgusting when I think about it. And you have to go all the way to Abuja. It's a misnomer. Like I said, it should be at the local government level. I should be sitting down and having conversations with the local government chairman. And guys, most states in Nigeria don't do local government elections. Or when they even do local government elections, the party in power sweeps the entire seat, and it's such a sham, of what it's supposed to be. But in your advocacy, you must ask yourself, who is the primary target? In your estates, in your housing estates, who is the target when there's a security breach? Are you going to run to the local government chairman? Are you going to run to the councillor, or you're going to run to your estate management? Because everybody must be able to carry his responsibilities. Your secondary target, is the person who is not the ultimate decision maker, but has an influence on the chain of decision making. So these two targets you either group them under your primary target or your secondary target. Note, guys, your primary target is the person who would make that decision. Sometimes it may be difficult for you to get to your primary target. I believe not so many of us will be able to have access to even your state governors, not to talk about the president of Federal Republic of Nigeria. But there are people who you would classify as your secondary target, who are able to influence your primary target. Sometimes it could be the wife of the president. In Nigeria, we had the wife of the president who was very popular and very influential, that at the time, she was so influential that she wanted to buy an entire area, not even buy, annex an entire area in the FCT. You people know who the president was. I would not say anything further than that, right? Now, the wife, though not the president, had the power to influence things for the president. Obviously, the former president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria said that the place of his wife is in the bedroom and the kitchen. He was absolutely right. But you also know that a whole lot of things can change in the bedroom and in the kitchen. Because in the bedroom and the kitchen, the wife is probably, according to him, because feminists would argue against this, according to him, the wife can influence decisions much more than you and I, right? So there are people who do not hold power. In some cases, on a lighter note, there are some side chicks, to political office stakeholders who have more power to drive, change than even the big activists you see on the street. Apologies to every activist who goes out to protest. There are people who do not have power. This is just my point. There are people who are not the ones who would make the call to change the decision, but there are other people who can influence them. So in building an advocacy, guys, you need to target these two classes of people, the primary target and the secondary target. It's very important. So let's look at policy influencing, because my session is simple: advocacy, effective advocacy, and policy influencing, right? So let's look at policy influencing, and let's look at what policy influencing is. Now I'll spend some time here because it's important. And guys, look at all of this stuff I have in white. It's very important. Policy influencing is the deliberate. Remember, I said this process is scientific, guys. Policy influencing is the deliberate and systematic process of influencing the policies, practices, and behavior of different targeted stakeholders. When you see targeted stakeholders now, you should know that your target in building your advocacy, you have two targets: the primary target and the secondary target, right? That are most influential on an issue, involving beneficiaries, involving people, citizens, communities, and increasing their ownership and capacity on the issue. It's very important. On the emphasis on the word deliberate, systematic, influencing of the policies, the practices, and the behavior of different targeted stakeholders, classified into primary and secondary stakeholders. Right. So let's see the difference between not the difference. Let's compare the both of them together, advocacy and policy influencing, because it becomes very, very important, right? Policy influencing has a principle, and this principle, for us to understand it better, is abbreviated into what I call CLASP. Right? C stands for credibility. Why would people trust you as an advocate, as a policy influencer? Why should people trust you? L stands for legitimacy. Who or what gives you the right to interfere? Valid question. So ask yourselves these questions, right? A stands for accountability. Transparency towards deciders and the constituency. Accountability becomes very important. As an advocate, we have so many advocates today that just bear the name advocates to make money. Live it. There was a word I saw some time ago on Twitter, and I laughed myself out. It says cashtivist. So you have activists and you have cashtivists. There are some people who are serial activists. The reason why they are talking about it, because they know that there's money that will come out of there. What they want is settlement. Let's speak to these issues. Then they call us behind and settle. Are you accountable to the people who you're advocating for? Very important question. S there represents service. Advocacy is service to humanity. And I say this all the time. If you know that you are not in advocacy for service to humanity, go and start a business. Go and sell clothes. Go and sell something. Go and just go to the government and go and collect contracts straight. Because the job of an advocate or a policy influencer is so critical that you must not break accountability and transparency. You must not breach the trust people hold on you. We have been in advocacies, we've been on protests, and we are still on the protest. The people who called for the protest had gone to negotiate with the government. And they've come out to tell us, let's close this protest now. The government has listened, but nothing changed. So ask yourself the question, am I involved in advocacy because of the pecuniary gains? Or am I involved in advocacy as a service to community? If advocacy is a service to you, one of the questions you should ask yourself is, how am I being helpful? There are some people who, the moment they got into that issue, the issue got messed up because there was no integrity. They have no integrity. There are some people I've made up my mind in this life never to protest. If I go to any protest and I see them, I'll leave. The reason is because I don't want to be associated with them. Because I know that they are cashtivists. They are there for the taking. They are there for the money. Last but not the least, the P stands for power. This is very important, guys. What is your power base and how do you use it? Do you join forces? Do you join your expertise? Do you even believe in your message? What is your power base? Is it for personal aggrandizement? One way we would know that it's not for personal aggrandizement is when you are open enough to bring in more people into your advocacy. What I mean is partnerships and collaboration. Right? What I mean is, how are you able to consolidate your power base? How are you able to bring these issues to the front burner so that people would contribute freely and willingly? One of the highest levels I have seen power exhibited in any advocacy so far was the Not Too Young to Run campaign. Everybody came out. The reason why everybody came out, no matter the organization you found yourself at the time, was because they believed in something. The message was believable. Young people must be able to participate and run for office. That was the message. So everybody joined forces together. The people who were excellent photographers, videographers, everybody I was in the forefront of that. I saw it happen. It was a beautiful experience, guys, because I could see people contributing their quota, you know. I mean, yes, on the protest, there were people who were mobilized to join the protest, but I saw people who were genuinely serving the cause. It's very important don't forget the principles of policy influencing. So let's look at advocacy approaches, right? Because it's very important. Your advocacy approaches must be approached from a perspective of a goal to win. The reason why I get into an advocacy is so that I see a change. I don't just talk because I want to talk. I want to see a change. And so there are various approaches. You can take the low profile approach, you can take the medium profile, and you can take the high profile. It's part of the skills. It's part of the processes we spoke about. The low profile is a quiet negotiation. You know, you can share information when you meet civil servants, you know, non-public briefs. You have meetings, you know, and when I say meetings, I'm very careful because there's a thin line as an advocate having this kind of meetings. But I mean, as an advocate, it doesn't mean you are the enemy of everybody. No, absolutely not. As an advocate, guys, if you have questions, begin to drop the questions in the chat box so that Peace and Lisa can help us collate the questions together so that I respond to them, right? If you have questions, we're going to get there real soon. In another 10 minutes, we'll take questions. But you can't, so that you don't forget, write down your questions. The low profile is, you keep it simple, right? I've been doing advocacy for almost over a decade now. It doesn't mean that people in government are my enemies. No. In fact, as an advocate, you must be able to identify various kinds of people you can work with, because there are people in government, you know, who have more information than you have and who are more passionate than you. There was a time in my life I used to think everybody in government is a useless person. You know, I was that passionate. I used to think I can never listen. In fact, I had propounded a theory and says that the people in government do not know what to do. They are blockheads. They are dumb people. You have one of the smartest brains in government. Quote me anywhere. In Nigeria, one of the smartest brains you have are people in government. If they are not smart, they wouldn't know how to steal so effectively. Yes, there are people who steal effectively and you will not see a trace. I mean, there are dumb ones who would, you know, steal and keep it in septic tanks. You know, yes, we have those people. But government has smart people. Not everybody in government, not everybody in public service or the civil service, it doesn't know what they are doing. There are a whole lot of people who know what, and they are more passionate and they have more information than you do as an advocate. So yes, it's good to have these conversations, open conversations with them as an advocate, but you must be careful. There's a thin line you must not cross. That's the line of integrity. And when you attend these meetings, don't collect transport. It's very important, you know, because I know someone will ask me that question, you know. The medium profile is continued negotiation. You meet with civil servants. Now you begin to put public briefs, you know, you begin to feed your position. You appear at committee meetings, you know, you go to the National Assembly when there is a conversation around an open conversation around the bill or something. You are there. You begin to write letters. You begin to write newspaper articles, medium profile. The high profile, guys, is the public criticism. When you go on TV and shout revolution now, right? Right? Some of you understand what I mean. You know, not every advocacy should be high profile. There are some advocacies that work better when it's still in the low profile. There are some that works. There are some that when it's not working in the low profile, you increase the fire a bit. When it goes to medium profile, you increase it a bit and you get to that level. Letter writing, protest comes under high profile. Litigation, you go to court. You sue the government. You know, unfortunately, the judiciary used to be, you know, the hope of the common man, but the judiciary now, you know, is blind to the plight of the common man. It's quite unfortunate. So let's look at steps in a successful advocacy and policy influencing. I'll be a bit faster here, guys. one of the major steps, one of the first steps, remember my definition of advocacy and policy influencing, guys. One single thread is systematic process. Systematic process. I call it scientific process. You have to rank your decision makers. Guys, remember, you have to know your targets, primary or secondary targets. You have to know when to advocate. Now we're saying that you need to rank your decision makers, right? In ranking your decision makers, you can use the numbering system. The number is 1 to 5. Number 1 says you're definite supporter of your advocacy demands. That this person supports my advocacy demands 100%. Number 2 is potential supporter. This person is not. If I speak to him more, he can switch places, right? Number 3 is your fence sitter, the people who are undecided. In the last election, we had a whole lot of people who were undecided, who were sitting on the fence. Is it going to be Tinubu? Is it going to be Atiku? Is it going to be Peter Obi? Is it going to be which other person? Adebayo? Is it going to undecided fence sitters, right? You must be able to rank your decision makers. Your primary targets or your secondary targets, you must rank them. The reason why you're ranking them is simple. It's very simple. You need to know the ones that you need to spend more time influencing. You need to know, number 4 is your likely opponent. This one, I'm not too sure. This guy doesn't like my face. When I was talking, he was looking at me in a certain kind of way. The 5th class are those people who see, they don't even want to see you. They're your definite opponents, right? Whatsoever. When you want to go on an advocacy and you've been able to understand the advocacy issue, understand the root cause, have your research done. I'll show you what research can do, and you are able to put them according to your targets, your primary targets, your secondary targets. The next thing you need to do is to rank them. Within my primary target, do I have, is this guy number 1? Is this guy number 2? Is he a number 3? Is he a number 4? Is he a number 5? The reason why you're ranking them is because you want to flip them. I want to flip my number 2 to my number 1. I want to flip my number 3 to my number 2, then to my number 1. I want to flip my number 4 to my number 3. Hopefully, he will flip to my number 2. Hopefully, I'll flip him to my number 1. In fact, I want to flip my number 5, to my number 2 or my number 1. It must not go in that level. It may change. Someone who is your definite opponent today may become your definite supporter tomorrow. And so, in ranking your decision makers, you must be able to evaluate them according to how your advocacy is going. It's very important, guys. The second thing is familiarize yourself with the corridors of power. I've spoken about this. You cannot be talking about basic education, for example, and be focusing on the federal government alone. I know that it's a misnomer, but you have to carry the local government. One of my friends started an organization, beautiful organization that teaches children how to learn by playing. It's an interesting, test that she started. And one of the things I said to her is, whilst it's important that you meet all the, guys at the state government, go to the local government and meet the education councils. And luckily she listened and she went and she discovered that the smoothest project she had ever done was to engage from that level of the local government. Sometimes the state is too big. Nigeria is too big. Almost every organization is in Abuja. What are you doing there? The job is in the local government. The job is in the local government. Local governments are getting allowances directly now, guys. They have so much money. You want to hold your state government accounts, it's fine. You want to hold the Tinubu administration account, it's also fine. But go to your local government, guys. Let's start from there. It's easier there. Your local government may not be able to arrest you how the federal government will arrest you. Your local government most likely would even listen to the voice of reason, because in your local government, you still have stakeholders who you can flip easily, who can become your supporters, So familiarize yourself with the corridors of power by learning about the rules, the processes, and the people that are most important to your issue. But don't be carried away, guys, with your primary targets alone. Your secondary targets can be the cleaner. Your secondary targets can even be a cook. Your secondary targets can be a gatesman. I have seen so many times when we've gone on advocacy, traveled for advocacy, and we got to the office and, the person is trying to run away. And, a commissioner one time, told us he wasn't around, that he had traveled to Abuja. And we came for an advocacy and he invited us to come and he said he had traveled. And when we were about leaving, these people who collect letters at government offices, have forgotten their name. The guy told us he's around, he has not traveled. He told us to go and come back at XYZ time, that would meet him at the corridor. And so what we did was simple. We left, we came back, because the man, he probably was a supporter of our advocacy. And he saw that we came all the way from Abuja. I will not call the name of the state. And he was able to be empathetic to our cause, right? And until we completed that advocacy and got everything we wanted, that guy was our definite ally. Obviously, I wouldn't go and meet the commissioner and tell the commissioner this was the person that told us you had not traveled. You understand? Because that person, did for us what would have come back to Abuja and start pursuing him again, before the next time, before we spend resources to go. So it's important. Familiarize yourself with the corridors of power, guys. Classify the players, knowing your allies, your opponents, and your targets. We've said this. Who are your definite allies? Who are the people who do not want to see you because what you're probably talking about is affecting them, right? Somebody has, we spoke about patriotism when we started. There are a whole lot of Nigerians actually who are not patriotic. They are only patriotic to their stomach. There are some Nigerians, but that's not the majority, guys, I must say. We have Nigerians who are really patriotic. In fact, the fact that you're on this course today means that you're a patriotic Nigerian. And we have hundreds and thousands, of those of us here, who believe so much and are patriotic about the Nigerian issue, right? And so Nigerians, a whole lot of Nigerians are very patriotic. And someone said it very importantly, if Nigerians are not patriotic, the country would have burnt down by now. And that's the truth. I would say it any way I find myself. Nigerians are one of the easiest people to lead. What an average Nigerian wants is lead by example, lead from the front. Those of us who were in Lagos, when Fashola was in Lagos, when the BRT idea came and Nigerians had to form line before they get into BRTs. You think it was not rocket science. Nigerians just needs people who will lead from the front. And the moment Nigerians are able to believe in what you're doing, because through practical experience you've been able to show them, it's easy for Nigerians to switch. And I give you another example. When Buhari became president, I was at the Federal Secretariat. I was doing my postgraduate internship there, right? I tell you the truth. Before Buhari won that election, I was at the Federal Secretariat. People came to work at 10, 11. My bosses came very late. I come to work, complete everything I have to do. I begin to wait for them to come, before, and I was just an intern. When Buhari won the election, those of you who can remember, I was there. People resumed at 8 o'clock. I would come in at 8:30 and there'll be a long line of people to get into the Federal Secretariat. Why? They called it body language. Nigerians are one of the easiest people to lead if you can lead from the front. Some people perceive that Buhari had that, demeanor of no nonsense. But after a few days when they saw that, nothing is going to happen here, they moved on with their lives and went back to default, right? Some of you can understand that. I've spoken about this. Classify them, classify the players, understand your allies, who are your opponents, who are your targets. You must target all of them. Classify the players. Spoken about this. Inform and build relationship, guys. Advocacy requires a series of formal and informal one-on-one contacts with decision makers and a steady stream of clear, concise backup information. This is important. Apart from the fact that you have series of formal and informal meetings and one-on-one contact with decision makers, another thing you must be able to do is you must maintain a steady, clear, concise backup information. Your hands must be clean. And that's why I say don't go for an advocacy and collect transport from the commissioner you're going to speak to. Don't do that. The moment money begins to exchange, and I have series of examples where I have gone on advocacies, and they've offered us money and we didn't collect. I can't even collect it because apart from the fact that my organizational policy frowns at that, because my organization gives me a whole lot, I mean, for my trips, take care of my accommodation, take care of everything I have to do. Guys, if you do not have the resources, you may want to pedal down on because, I mean, because sincerely, advocates have needs. So you go for an advocacy, a government, and one of the things those government guys will tell you is there's a budget for it already. You are not stealing. It's not, we're the ones giving it to you. The moment you begin to exchange money begins to exchange hands, you have put yourself in a difficult situation. I always advise, the best I do personally is that sometimes when I don't feel like, when I'm going into a meeting, I take my own bottle of water. I could be that intense depending on the situation. But if you give me water, I mean, if there's water on the table, I talk a whole lot. I'll need to drink water sometimes. I don't have a problem with you, taking water, taking coffee, but there are some kind of advocacies, that, no, we're not taking anything here today. I go with my own bottle of water, just so that you will not come and give me water now. You say, I don't have the right to talk because you've given me water. So you have to be careful. And that's why it has to be, the emphasis is there. It must be clear, stream of clear, concise, backup information, guys. Another reason is because that when you build these relationships are good. But the people you're speaking for, the marginalized, the people who are weak, the people who can't talk for themselves most times, you don't want to have them have a perception of you that is not correct. Because we've sent people on advocacies and they've gone and they've collected money and sabotaged communities. It happens everywhere. You are in Nigeria and you should have seen one or two examples. It's very, very important, guys. Let's look at the dimensions of advocacy. 3 levels of dimensions of advocacy. The first advocacy is for the beneficiaries and the marginalized. The second dimension of advocacy is with the beneficiary and the marginalized. The third level, which for me is the highest level, is by the beneficiaries and the marginalized. Let me take you through the journey, how this is. Now, when you understand that, advocacy is you speaking up for people or speaking up for yourself in some cases, when speaking up for people, especially marginalized people who are the beneficiaries, your first level of advocacy is you speaking for them. But if your advocacy stops at that level, you are wrong. Your advocacy is not complete. Your advocacy is like 20-25%. What you need to do is to be able to stimulate communities so much so that the same issues you are saying is what community is also saying. And so if your advocacy stops at you always being the spokesperson of the community, you are beginning to get into personal aggrandizement. There's something you're beginning to benefit from it. But when your advocacy moves from the point where you are the one speaking on behalf of community to when it is you and the community, speaking together, your advocacy is progressing. And like I said, the highest level of advocacy is when even without you, the community is able to speak for themselves. A whole lot of advocates in Nigeria today will stop at the first level of advocacy, dimension of advocacy. Because at this dimension, this is where you have social media followers now. What are you saying? This is where you have money now. This is where you have grants money now. The donors will come and say, we want to give, few people grants. This is because you are speaking. They know you are the only one who goes on channels TV. This is where you get your money from. This is where you get your advocacy allowance from, right? But it must not stop there. I'm not saying getting grants for advocacy is wrong. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying if it's just about you alone, speaking on behalf of the community, then you are not doing anything skin deep. You may not be there tomorrow. What happens? But when your advocacy graduates in dimensions and it comes to the level where you've been able to build the capacity of community enough for the both of you to be speaking together. So I'm going to Channels TV today. I'm not going alone. I'm going with a member of my community. I'm going on the radio today to speak about education or speak about anything that concerns me. I am not going alone, but I'm going with people who need those services and their views can be expressed. And the highest level, guys, is when I decide not to go anywhere and the community takes it up on their own to continue to advocate for themselves. This is very important. I always emphasize this because in your life as an advocate or as someone who wants to influence government policies, you must be careful about you just being the spokesperson of community alone. You have to build the capacity of the community. In fact, if the community does not believe in your message, you shouldn't even advocate on that issue. You have to build the capacity of your community enough, so much so that they are able to do what you are doing with you, and they are able to, you know, do it on their own. I think this should be my last slide. What are the tools for advocacy, guys? You have the media, you have radio, newspaper. Those of you who can write, you should write in the newspapers, television. Research is very important, guys. I've never seen an advocate, you know, who does not do research. Because if you do not do research, you would fumble. I've seen people go on TV and they speak nonsense. They speak trash. You know, there are people who just have opportunities and they blow it off because they've not done their research, right? Mobilizing and campaigning is important. I spoke about the Not Too Young to Run campaign, mobilization and campaigning. Information dissemination, you know, some of you are cartoonists, you know. I don't know how many of you know Mike Asuko, excellent cartoonist. He passes his message in cartoons. So your natural gifts can be able to help you pass your advocacy. You understand? In fact, the Buhari administration one day came out to say Buhari loves cartoons so much that anytime he looks at cartoons, anytime he buys magazine, he looks at cartoons, he laughs. Cartoons have proven to be one of the highest levels of advocacy, you know, because it probably presents a caricature of the situation. Guys, when you go on an advocacy, monitoring and evaluation is important. I go out today, I talk about this issue, I come back, I review what I've done. You have to review the process. You have to move people on your target list. Okay, this one, you know, has the power. This one does not have the power. You have to know the person who can influence decisions. You have to monitor and evaluate. Guys, if you have the capacity, those of you who are lawyers, you can go in through litigation. And those of you who are lobbyists, you can go to parliament and lobby. Protest and rallies, you know, are tools for advocacy. This is supposed to be a practical session. I do this practical session on my physical class, but I'm not going to do it. Those of you who can, you can screenshot it. You can do it as a test on your own. Then you can be able to learn more. Practical tips. Test yourself on practical tips on advocacies. Guys, this is also still the practical session. I hope with these few points of mine, I've been able to convince you and not to confuse you that advocacy is very critical. It's a pivotal, you know, part of the work you have to do in terms of understanding, you know, your rights as a citizen of the country and speaking for other people. My name is Busayo Luadamilare Murakio, and I love the work I do as an advocate. Thank you very much. I'll take questions now.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. How many questions do we have? Are you moderating the question or you're asking the questions?
Okay, I'm asking a question.
Okay, so please help me. Just hold on, please. Give me a
Before
minute.
you respond, sorry, sir.
Right.
Let me interject. I apologize for that. Please, we are out of time. So please, if you're asking your questions, let's keep it very brief. Others are waiting. Others still need to ask their questions. And then please don't unmute if you're not asked to, so that it's going to be orderly and well coordinated. Then I'm sorry for the person who had started speaking. We already have a question in the chat box, and I'm going to start with that. We'll shuffle between the chat box and those raising their hands. So the first question from the chat box is, how do we engage specifically for accountability? For example, ensuring all public officers declare assets.
This is a beautiful question. It's a good place to advocate, and that's why we just took this session, you know. So build your advocacy around that. but quite sincerely, right? Unfortunately, the Nigerian state is not the ideal, what an ideal state should be, right? Because I know that in the government, when Yaradua came into government, Yaradua declared his assets, right? But after Yaradua, Goodluck, I'm not sure Goodluck declared his assets. Buhari said he has 200 or 300 cows, you know, and I don't understand all of those things. It should be backed up by the Act of Parliament that every public office holder declares the assets. Yes, it's there. It's there actually. But there's a clause of making it public. It is not there. So it's based on personal discretion. It's a good place to begin an advocacy to say public office holders must, and it's an act of parliament. So unfortunately, the people we send to parliament are just nothing to write home about, because it affects them. When it affects them, they don't talk about it. You understand? When it affects them, when it's going to have them change their minds, they don't talk about it. But this is where we should be able to begin to influence the people we send to parliament to change these laws, to make it compulsory for people to declare their assets, before they run for office. Number one, before they run for office. Number two, when they leave office, so that it's in the public domain, right? It's just the same thing about the health status of people running for offices. These things are shrouded in secrecy. And guys, corruption thrives in opacity. Corruption thrives in the dark. It's very important.
Okay, the next person is Musa. You can unmute and speak. Musa Salihu.
Okay, thank you very much. My question is about the fiscal policies that do operate in Nigeria, because the real scenario, if you consider, if you can buy 100 naira recharge card, valid added tax will for you, but there are a lot of vehicles of 30 million and or airplanes or something that they are moving around, but at the end of the year, they are not paying any income tax to the government. And finally, if you consider Tayo Oyedele, the chairman tax reform committee that started an advocacy before 2023 election on people that are on those that are paying tax in Nigeria, I think he said less than 70%. And some before running up for office, you must pay tax for a period. Yes, whereas our politicians do go to the agency pay for those tax accumulatively instead of
you're breaking. You're really breaking.
I can't hear. Paying. So how are we going about this?
I can't seem to hear you clearly.
Okay. In terms of fiscal policy.
Musa, can you take it again? If you're using an earpiece, please be consistent with putting the mouthpiece close to your mouth so that it will be consistent. You're breaking.
Okay, so okay. Thank you very much. What I mean is in terms of the fiscal policies that are operating in Nigeria. So from the valid added tax and the other tax each and every citizen is supposed to be paying. So how are we going to go about that advocacy? Because it seems it is only the poor that suffers with respect to those fiscal. Example.
Okay, I think I get the idea of your question, even if I still couldn't hear you really clearly. Now, when it comes to taxation, you see, guys, and this is another place to build another advocacy, right? There are people who are paid by taxpayers' money to ensure that people pay tax. What is their job fundamentally, right? It is their responsibility to ensure that people pay taxes. It's their responsibility to ensure that no matter who you are, where you are, you must pay taxes. So when those people do not do what they are supposed to do, we have this kind of situations. Now, so there are people who are building advocacies around tax justice. I know that there's an organization called Follow Taxes. You can Google them out. Follow Taxes. They are doing a whole lot in that area. If that area is of interest to you, please reach out to them. Follow Taxes. You can just put that on Google. You'll be able to spool them out. That is another good place to build an advocacy. Now, for me personally, my advocacy is focused on the things that I find most pressing. But the perception that some people are above the law is just sad. The perception that some people are above the law leaves nothing to be desired, especially public office holders, who end up escaping this tax. Let me give you guys a simple story, and I hope I do this within 1 minute. There was a minister of finance in this country in the last administration. The moment she brought out voluntary tax VADs, voluntary asset declaration, that was when Nigeria realized that she didn't do her NYC and she faked her NYC certificate. Unfortunately, she had skeletons in her cupboard. The policy was an amazing policy. that would force everybody to declare their assets so that they are taxed according to their assets. But because the strong people, knew that that policy was against them, what we saw was they came up to say that she didn't do NYC and she forged her NYC certificate. I am not supporting her for forging her NYC certificate, because he who comes to equity must come with clean hands. But guess what happened? She didn't go to jail for forging her NYC certificate. There's no court case. The only thing she did was to resign. And the moment she resigned, that particular, what is it called? That particular policy went under. The new minister just moved on as if nothing happened, because she wouldn't want to open that thing that made her predecessor, lose her job. Do you understand what I mean? Now, so we must be able to understand that the people we are engaging with are not reasonable people, right? So when you are building your advocacy, you must be able to build a collective advocacy, especially when you are not a subject matter expert. Look for subject matter experts and contribute to what they are doing, and you would be able to see that your desires would begin to come to fruition. It's a strategy you guys need to carry. Guys, you don't need to build an advocacy from the scratch. Look for people who are doing what you're doing and connect to them and grow your advocacy from there. Any other questions, please?
Yes, sir. So we have another question in the chat box from Justin. He's saying issues like child rights, sexual and reproductive health have started.
Sorry, hold on, please. Yeah. Okay, so that we don't waste time. I can see the question. So let me just take it. Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So Justin has sparked debate among compatibility with cultural and religious beliefs in Nigeria. Guys, this is a big subject, and I'm careful to dive into the subject. The reason is because our world has become more sensitive. And I mean, this is on YouTube also. It's not because I don't have my opinions, guys, I must say. But when it comes to cultural relativity and religious beliefs, we must be able to, and I'm critical about the subject. He who pays the piper dictates the tune. He who pays the piper. The funds for these advocacies, where is it coming from? The funds are not coming from Nigeria, guys. The funds are coming from the global south, the West. It's coming from, the global south. Right? Now, he who pays the piper dictates the tune. If you're talking about female genital mutilation, for example, we've agreed that female it's wrong, right? It's wrong. It shouldn't be practiced, right? Now, that is good. You understand? You don't cherry pick when the people who pay you are saying this is what you should do. That's why Nigerians, you and I, must be able to build our own advocacies and fund our own advocacies that portrays our values, right? For example, the LGBTQ campaign going on is because somebody pays the piper and it dictates the tune. If you cannot collect money and say that you collect money when I say FGM is wrong, and you don't want to collect money when I'm saying you should create more space for LGBTQ, these are bigger conversations, guys, that this session may not be able to take. But I tell you the truth, right? Until we become self-sufficient, even in our advocacy, the biggest advocacies going on in Nigeria today are most times not funded by Nigerians. They are funded by the people who can pay for it. The conversation around fuel subsidy removal, it's not 100% a Nigerian conversation. It's an IMF World Bank conversation, guys. Right? And this is not me bringing, big theories. But if you've stayed on advocacy a little bit, you become more critical, like I am trying not to be now. Second question is strategies like protest demonstrations are sometimes criticized as disruptive or disrespectful. Raise a question about appropriate methods. There is to say, listen, so long as your advocacy does not cause violence, so long as your advocacy, civil disobedience is a form of advocacy. If people decide to sit on the road today, civil disobedience is a form of advocacy. Nobody should bully you. The problem we have in Nigeria is You know, a whole lot of people just want to bully everybody. You know, few people will come and say, don't protest. But the same people protested when another government was in power. Is that not Habba? You think protest is good when you are the only one protesting? No. What is good for the goose is good for the gander, right? Protests are valid. Emphasis on the word valid. Let's go back to the 2020 protests, guys. The protests were peaceful. It was the first protest in my life where I saw people protesting and people sweeping, cleaning the streets, giving people food on the protest. What caused the mayhem and chaos we saw? It was when the same government began to bring in tout thugs in government vehicles and police vehicles. I was at the protest in Abuja. I saw when these touts started coming out of government SUVs. There are so many people who are doing legitimate business that has never gotten into an SUV, a Lexus SUV. But we saw touts come out from those SUVs to disrupt the protest. When it is good for them, they'll say we are protesting. When it's not good to them, they'll say you are disrespectful. There's nothing like that. And that's one of the reasons why Nigerians must understand that whoever becomes your leader is not the head over you. Your leader is supposed to be a servant. The reason why people will come and beg you for your votes, they'll campaign to you, is because they know that you are the ones who are sending them to work on your behalf. They owe you the duty to respect you and come back and give you updates. If they are not giving updates, they cannot determine how you react when they are not doing what they are supposed to do. Guys, don't be cowed by those, silly comments we hear that, protester. Yes, protests are disruptive. There's nothing that has happened all over the world that has not been disruptive. There was a time apartheid was good. There was a time slavery was the best thing that has ever happened to humanity. But people disrupted that process. People protested. People went on the street. For me personally, is protest the best way of advocacy? I don't think so. For me personally, I have been on protests. I mean, we've seen bullets fly on protests. We've seen tear gas fly on protests. I don't think there was a time I told myself I was never going to protest for Nigeria again. But protests are still a valid form of an advocacy. Let nobody, say otherwise. Do we have any other question, please?
Yes, sir, we do. From Samuel John. He's asking about, I think, let me just summarize. He's talking about price control. We don't have an agency, or it's something that has been neglected by the government. And how can that be achieved? How can that be effectively regulated for us to have a stabilized price in the country?
There's an agency of government responsible for that. It's their job. And that's another point of advocacy, guys. And the reason why I'm pushing these things back to you is because I don't have all the knowledge on every sector. I told you the problems are hydra-headed. I would not come into dabble into what I do not clearly understand. But I know there's an agent of government that is supposed to be responsible for price control. If you think they are not working, like I said, look for an institution doing work in that regard. If you do not see any, you can start up yours, that will do work on that regards. Now, on the problem of price control, what are the incentives you give to the people producing? Someone makes cars, but your government will still buy SUVs from Japan. They'll still buy Lexus and Toyota, right? Now, you would now say you want to control the price of Innoson's vehicles when your government does not patronize them, when your government does not give the necessary incentives to them, when few people have access to foreign exchange, other people do not have access to foreign exchange, you want to regulate that price? Oh, come on. You don't do things like that, right? I mean, these are big conversations, bigger than what this class can take. But the truth of the matter is, guys, the moment you see a problem somewhere, you'd begin to think about how you can address the problem. A better way for you to address that problem is probably looking for people who are working in that same way, partner with them. If you cannot find, you can create something, but don't travel alone. This is the last thing I'm going to say to you guys. Please don't travel alone. It's easy for them to arrest one person, but it's difficult for them to take all of us. They cannot pack all of us, but it's easy for them to take out one person. And with all the sense of responsibility, please ensure that you hold yourself to the highest, form of self-esteem. I'll put my social media handles on this chat. If you want to have further conversations, I'm very, very open. Thanks to the Electoral College once again for having me as always. Thank you, Peace, for moderating this session. Thanks, guys, for listening in. Thanks for the amazing questions you have. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you so much, sir, for today. As always, your class is always fired up and the heat in the room, everybody can feel it, right? Thank you so much. And it's always nice having you. Thank you for the knowledge shared. To everyone, thank you for being in class today. Please, let's try as much as possible to remind others. Class still continues tomorrow. We have class tomorrow at 5. I still apologize again for dropping the link for today's class late. So we sincerely apologize for that. And then please, let's try as much as possible to reach out to our party members. We need to be in class, right? When you think you've gotten the best, then boom, something else comes up, right? We still have other facilitators, amazing facilitators to come share with us. So please try as much as possible not to miss anyone. So thank you so much, everyone. Let's all have a restful night. Good night.